loved about the graffiti scene is we've always said, fuck you to them kind of people, and we've always done it ourselves. We've run everything ourselves, we've got the permission ourselves, we made the paint ourselves. Even your companies that make the paint today that most people buy wouldn't exist if they hadn't been writers first.
This is an interview for Peep magazine. You've heard of the Godfather of Soul. You've heard of the Godfather Don Vito Corleone. Now meet the North East Godfather, Mr Zee.
Hello there, fella. How you doing?
Not bad, mate. How's yourself?
I'm all good, brother. Painting and happy.
You've been here from yesterday as well, but you didn't paint much yesterday.
Yesterday, I had a bit of a chill day, seeing a lot of people that I hadn't seen in a long time. We've all been sort of disrupted with the whole pandemic, you know, life. We would normally have a lot more of these over the past few years, which we haven't had, so it was nice to have that vibe going again yesterday with everybody from around the country painting away happy. So I meant yesterday to spend a bit of time with old friends that I hadn't seen for a while. Plus I've been painting all week and the old hand needed a bit of a break. Yeah.
On your social medias, you say a pioneer of 3D and textured light styles. Could you explain that, please?
Me and my crew, other members of my crew as well, back in the very, very late 80s, early 90s, started experimenting with the whole take the outline away from the piece kind of idea, where you sort of shaded it to make it look much more realistic, as if it was an actual real object on the wall, rather than just like this flat 2D suede or 3D sort of painting. And we came up with all kinds of different versions of that style, using all kinds of textures, from bone to whale skin to all kinds of like other influences, rock, as you know, all kinds of wood, everything else, which gave it like a much more, again, three-dimensional feel and texture vibe. And then over the years I've since developed light up styles where it looks like it's glowing, illuminated within itself, sort of thing, and that, you know. So, and I like neon effects and all that sort of stuff, and that, you know. Around
1987, did you form the third Teem Krew?
The third team first existed around about 1984, 85. That's when it was originally started by the original three members, which was Snake, Tomma, and Freck, or Wizard, I think he was writing back then. And then it was Snake that asked me and my friend Squirm to join the crew. And at about that time, a lot of other people were sort of dropping out of what they saw as the fad of the breakdancing sort of hip-hop scene that had blew up from New York and America over the previous couple of years. And they sort of dropped out and left me, Squirm and Snake to run with the whole third team moniker, and so achieve like everything we did back in the 80s and that, you know. And then other members joined in the late 80s that helped further the name across the country and across the world and that, you know what I mean. So it was a good time, you know, good times. Yeah.
From my first memory of Graff in Newcastle, it was like when I was a kid, I seen like a lot of Graff, and I'm sure you would have been there on Forth Banks. Do you know there was a big there's like literally a bank, and there was like half a mile of Graff.
Yeah, that was me and my crew. The title of the piece was Eternal Bombers. We had permission off the building owner, who was a good friend of mine, for to use his building for whatever we wanted to do on the outside. I painted a big black dragon. The whole idea of the mural was about reading, and how reading encourages your imagination, you know, learning to visualize the stuff you read as a child. It helped me as an artist as I got older for to be able to visualize all kinds of crazy stuff based on all the stuff that my father used to read me and other stuff and that, you know what I mean. Yeah, so I always encourage people who are parents to give the gift of reading to their child, you know. Make it fun when they're little. So then that first encounter with the books, not a maths book being shoved at them by some teacher in a high school, you know what I mean? Where they're like, oh, books are horrible, and that's the way they go through life. books give springs to all kinds of art and influence and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
It's kind of the doorway to the imagination, isn't it?
It is, brother, yeah. I think with the internet we lost a lot of people like reading books. I know it's still a thing. I know a lot of people will still be out there that read books, but I don't think a lot of the young people sort of appreciate what it can actually bring to your life when you sit quietly, disconnected from everything, and just build a story in your head. You know what I mean? It's brilliant.
Yeah, man. You seem to do a lot of community work in the Meadowell area. Could you maybe talk briefly about that, please?
Yeah, back in the very early days, we were sick of getting arrested for graffiti. We're on to our second offence at the time. The judge had said basically, if you come back in front of me, you're going to jail. Yeah, because there wasn't a 3 strikes thing then, but it was still like, you've been told off twice. You're not a young man. I was over 18. So I didn't have that excuse that I was a naive teenager. So we had to make, and we were so passionate about what we wanted to do, we had to make a way to do that. In the Meadowell area, with me being from that area originally, Smith's Park, the Ridges, whatever you want to call it, we approached local youth workers who then took us under his wing as a manager, and then got with the space in the Tonbridge play site. We did all kinds of workshops with the local kids. They all raised money for us to go to New York City to meet our idols. I got to hang out with Vulcan, Phase 2, one of the great granddaddies of graffiti. He was become a very close friend, and we lost him a couple of years ago, So, but I blessed through people in the community like that we love to give back to at the time, because it's where our hearts were from, you know what I mean? It had problems, a lot of problems back then. That's why it led to the riots and everything, Yeah, but here we are 40 years, 30 years later, and people are still coming forward with the same old problems, brother, and it's sad, man, I was always a little vandal when I was little. I used to steal my brother-in-law's car paint and write my schoolyard nickname all over the place, like Macca's, I used to get caught off him all the time. I used to give us a slap and that, it was funny. So, yeah, but I was also taught I was very lucky to be taught by an old pro, a really amazing old pro sign writer when I was a young lad. And we did some awesome projects when I was very young, with 9, 10, learned to use sign writing brushes and all that, and I always had a passion for lettering. So when the whole graffiti movement come along, art was the only thing I knew at school. It was the only thing that the teachers could get me to actually sit down and pay attention to. I had all kinds of problems at school. These days they probably say I was ADHD and all that lot, but back then you were just clouted and called awkward, you know what I mean? So, and then it was one beautiful teacher called Mrs Granger in my primary school that kind of realised that when she put some kind of artwork stuff in front of me, I would actually sit down and concentrate and get on with it, I ended up winning the art prize for the school. Yeah, and then just naturally fell into the whole graffiti movement. I was already adept with a spray can. And I just loved the whole idea of the whole hip-hop, the graffiti, that you were involved. You weren't just a bystander in the hip-hop movement. You had to pick your element and get on with it, you know what I mean? And I was an alright body popper. I couldn't break dance, but art was always my thing, and lettering's always been a passion of mine, and I just kind of ran with it from there, brother,
Brilliant, man, what a story. Could you briefly talk about how all this graph came about, and what was your motive and inspiration to put the can to the wall? Here we are again, Mr Zee. We've had to jump in the car because it's been absolutely pouring down the rain, and Barry was nice enough to say let's jump in the car. So here we are. This is we're going to pick it up right from, you went to New York in the 80s, and where you met Vulcan, Phase 2 and Dome. Can I ask what was this like, going to the what I would only describe as the Mecca for graffiti artists?
Well, for somebody like me, it was a completely new experience. I grew up on the Ridges estate around North Shields, and had never been out of the country in my life, never been on an aeroplane. When we raised the money to go to New York, we all flew over there, which was an incredible experience being in a plane for the first time, and also, like you said, the excitement of going to New York City, which to us was the Mecca. It is the only Mecca from back then, of where you wanted to see it in its original format, you know. And we were very lucky to go over there and meet some of our actual heroes, you know. I had met Vulcan at Bridlington, the World Street Art Championships, Graffiti Championships in Bridlington. We'd swapped information. I told them I was coming over. I said, would it be all right to give him a ring and hook up with him? Will, being the great guy that he was, said, aye, no problem. So when we got over there, he then hooked us up with Phase 2. We got to meet Lonnie, hung out with him, watched him paint a bit in the exhibition that he was doing at the time up in the South Bronx, called Black and White and Colour. Probably one of the biggest influential moments of my life, because Phase wrote for IG Times, which was the International Graffiti Times. It was like the world's first ever graffiti magazine from New York City. The original prints are in like sepia tones on like sepia paper, and you know, with like black and white prints and stuff and that, you know. And but like reading through Phase's editorials, he was always very political in his writings. His motivation for his artwork was very political, you know. The whole American environment with the whole racism undertone of America was very prominent in Lonnie's mind and that, you know. Obviously, being from the South Bronx, them guys probably know more than anybody what it's like to be at the end of racism and that, you know what I mean? So it was an honour to meet the guy, honour to see him paint, and honour to hear him talk about what his motivations were, which led me to say, like, what's my motivations, you know what I mean? So it changed my life to the point where I started paying attention more to what was going on around me, hence why these days I classify myself as an anarchist socialist. I hate this whole system that we've brought to ourselves, and men in suits down south making decisions for all of us, bring a hell of a lot of problems to this world, not just in this country, but every other country that we've ever had influence in. And that whole system, as we've all seen over the past few years, is very corrupt, and it all needs change. The whole thing, you know. So that, or my whole mentality for most of my life has been like that, and it all comes from meeting Phase and hearing like that whole political thing, because I was Meadowell mentality, you know, all my mates, and you know, getting drunk with the lads and hanging out, and they were out stealing cars and all sorts of stuff and that, you know. Whereas I like got that opportunity to go to New York, see that lifestyle over there, see the difference to what we had over here, and like how, even though it's rough, it wasn't much better than the South Bronx. The only difference is we weren't all shooting each other and killing each other and that, you know what I mean?
It was kind of a bit more intense, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it brought that to light, that like what we had over here, luckily, having that very early legal graffiti spot down Meadowell, and a couple of other areas around North Tyneside as well, we were very lucky to be able to push like for that and get through, because say in New York, where it came from, them guys had no, that's why it was everywhere, you know, that's why every building was bombed, you know. It was inspirational, but it also showed like where it would go if we didn't, you know, try other means to enjoy. Because it is an art form, it always has been, it always will be, whether it's just a tag or not. It's all about style and placement. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know when you met Phase 2 and you came back to the North East from New York, did you feel that you were kind of maybe light years ahead of other people in Newcastle writing? Not to be big-headed or anything like that, but did you feel within yourself that I've just had an awakening here, and I've come back to something like I'm about 10 years ahead of you?
Well, one of my greatest moments in my life, brother, was hanging out with Phase and Vulcan at another time in my life, 1994. They came over to the UK to bring the IG Times tour over here, and they did like a couple of exhibitions and stuff with all the stuff that they had, and to have my idol, Vulcan, Will, he's a good friend, but he was my idol, like looking up at graffiti back then. Say, can I steal your fillings? You've got the most serious fillings you've ever seen. It was my biggest buzz I've ever had in my life, brother. Yeah, big compliment coming from the guy who I looked up to. Was insane, Yeah.
There's a beautiful shot where you're doing a piece in Meadowell, and there's like a burning house in the foreground. I mean, you couldn't make that up, could you?
Yeah, no. Like I say, the whole area had some really major problems with unemployment and all kinds of other things. That housing estate like rapidly went downhill. Houses, like you said, people would just crash cars into the houses and set fire to them. We'd be in there painting, and you just hear the cars, next thing you know, boom, houses were up in flames. The area slowly evacuated over like about 2 or 3 years, to the point where we ended up with the riots. 2 good friends got killed. Because we all know they were killed, and it caused the whole Meadowell riots of '91, which brought the estate to like a really bad state of disrepair because they set fire to everything, Yeah.
I kind of want to touch on some of your commissions. Be More Geek with a full-on floor with the Marvel heroes, and is this your extension of graffiti? And are these kind of commissions like that one and the one in the Baltic, is this kind of an extension of your artistic endeavours, and is this something that you want to pursue?
Well, the Baltic one was a group collective show that we did to bring the highlight to the fact that there is a lot of great artists around the North East who needed just a little bit of exposure. 2 seconds, mate.
Yeah.
Any problem for that? Right, what was I saying?
The Baltic was...
the Baltic, yeah. It was a collective group show. We all got asked, because obviously a lot of people were complaining that the Spank the Monkey show had just been on, which was like Banksy and quite a few other like sort of famous street artists that were like crossing over to like the galleries and stuff. And obviously, writers being writers, they were all moaning and whinging, like, "Why? What about us?" And so, some a local youth worker guy sort of put a proposal into the Baltic, and they agreed to give an entire floor to drop a show. So we did what was called the G Word. Which was a really good show. It brought a lot of talented writers from around the North East together to put a show out there to show the talents of like what was actually capable. The Baltic piece, I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. It was called, what was it? Sporadic Outbursts of Spontaneous Creation. That's what it's called. I love to give them titles.
It was absolutely great, mate. I've also seen your experiments with dioramas. So, what motivates these models, and is this something that you've been working on for a while? And is this an extension of your 3D art?
Yes, definitely. Always loved the idea of being able to touch a piece, to be able to like take that bit of imagination and feel it, and when that first print worked and rose out of that resin, it was like that buzz of having that can for the first time and pulling off your first piece. I got that same proper like mega sort of appreciation inside, that I've managed to achieve something, and I'm enjoying that whole premise of being able to take my imagination to a physical format rather than just a visual format, so yeah, I do definitely see that as one of my next steps, but I like to experiment with all sorts, so I'll play with it for a while, see how far it goes. It's got a lot of possibilities, and it's hopefully going to lead to a lot of other projects that I've got in mind that'll come from that, based on the dioramas, different trains, eras, all kinds of other stuff, all good stuff in the pan that hopefully will come to fruition over the next couple of years, you know, so.
A good friend of yours, Phase 2, was quoted saying the only significant vehicle to represent their existence is graph. How do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I did a sculpture which is still there in Walker Park with a very talented Northumbrian artist called Sue and a load of great young children, and we did a sculpture, and on the sculpture it's written, "To write my name is to say I exist."
Wow.
We live in a world where your signature is everything. Yeah, it goes on legal documents as you get older. It shapes your whole life. Yeah, you get your loans with your signature. You get your house, your mortgage with a signature. You sign your life away to university with the signature. It is who you are. Your signature is your only sort of legal thing to say that I am here and this is me. So we carved that onto the stone to write my name, and that's basically what Lonnie's saying. Mm-hmm. It's the only true way of saying, like, look, I'm here in a world that doesn't care, you know, where you're just one of the billions, you know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's a way of saying, like, look, I'm around, you know, and people pay attention. They see the name, they learn the name, they hear the name, and they repeat the name.
Obey the Giant. Right. He once said a few years ago about repetition is king.
Yeah, definitely. If you look at most of the modern big hit sort of artists of today, they have a product. Yeah, they bring what's called a consistent art style. Mm-hmm. It's a product. Yeah, it's art that's been turned into a product. We live in a world where everything's design, isn't it? Everything's logos, everything's repetition. Mm-hmm. Shove it in people's faces. That's how they sell you everything, isn't it? Exactly. Yeah, it's how they get you to like all the music that they release and everything else. It's repetition. Yeah, well, as a human, when you want to memorize something, you say it over in your head several times. Yeah. Repetition. It's how you get things to stick, brother. You know.
There was an interesting thing you said on one of your shots about a Mr. Crane had an automotive shop, and he used to mix paint for you.
Oh, brilliant! Mr. Crane, he was a right great old fella. He had a automotive paint shop where he would sort out all the colours for the sprayer guys and everything. And he had like catalogues of every car that was ever made and every colour that was ever made on cars. And with us being the pain in the arses that we were, like, he allowed us to go through every single one to find all of those unique colours that we couldn't get anywhere else, because obviously British paint back then in the 80s was terrible. You couldn't get purples, peaches, pinks. Mm-hmm. There was loads of ranges that you just couldn't get, and then when anybody saw them, they would have an orgasm practically, like, oh God, I want a pink, and everybody like, yo man, where'd you get the pink? And that, you know, that's a quote from a boy tease. And it just developed the idea that we used to go there and we'd have these colours that we'd catalogued, and then Mr. Crane would mix them up for us to our specs, not just to his specs, what he was given the formula, but we'd be like, can you mix this colour but like highlight 2 parts of white in so it goes lighter and stuff and that, you know. So he'd mix special colours that we gave names to and that, beet blue and like other colours and that, Zee's prawn. There was like loads of different colours that we used to get mixed up, and he had the formulas memory sort of written down, so that when we came back for them, we'd like, can you not what was Zee's prawn and that, you know, and like other like colours and that. Amazing, it was called the Viton system. The nozzles were really unique. They worked the same as a calligraphy nozzle these days, where you had like a very thin line one direction and a broad line another direction, and you could turn the little blue thing. You couldn't change it to any other cap. It had a very, very unique cap system and that, you know. But it worked brilliant, and it gave us access in the North East to colours that nobody else had. You know, people used to say, well, like, where do you get them colours, you know? And if it wasn't from Cranes, we'd hand mix them, you know, can to can. Depressurise one a bit, take some paint out, use it to make a mix and straw yourself, steal the WD-40 nozzles and the little straws from like every shop you ever went into. And then you would mix your cans, you know, mix your own colours. And again, we had all the formulas for that as well, so that we would remember. We'd buy like big batches of white or ivory and mix dark tones into them to make lovely pinks and lilacs and all kinds of stuff and that, you know.
Do you know, it's interesting you're talking about the whole process and the whole mindset that goes on with graph and putting a piece up, and then Joe Public walks past it and calls it mindless graffiti.
Yeah.
I mean, it couldn't be more far from the truth, could it?
No, exactly. Depending on who you are, some people just like street bomb out there and it's all like opportunity, the world, look at that, nobody's looking, boom, done, you know. But like for the likes of our crew back then, it was all about the planning, it was about getting the right colours sorted, mixing my own, finding them, sourcing them from everywhere and anywhere, usually stealing most of them if we could back then, you know. And then we started getting the commissions where we'd actually pay for it and everything, and then that started giving us free paint. And then we realised that, you know, more commissions we had, the more free paint we had, and then we would be able to do what we wanted to do and not what somebody else was asking you to do. And we built that from there, which allowed us to go to cranes and everywhere else. And then we got eventually got an account with the local garage supplying company that had German painting, Belton, Auto K. And we started getting all that, and we were getting him to get all that, the more colours of that in and everything. So we had access to a lot more than what your General Joe had. But like you're saying, then most people walk past and just think it's just graffiti. And it's like, well, it's taken months to get them colours. It's took a lot of planning on the drawing. It's took years to get the skills together to be able to use the cans. So no, it's not just mindless vandalism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, mate.
Do it. Creativity is good for your soul. It brings part of you out in a world that wouldn't normally care. So just do it. Draw, paint, make music, sing, dance, do everything that humans are supposed to do, rather than the things that they expect you to do. Yeah.
And on that note, mate, we'll draw this interview to a close, and I just want to say massive, massive, massive respect to you and your huge body of work. And I've interviewed a lot of graffiti writers and artists, and almost every one of them have says you've got to get Mr Zee. You've got to get Mr Zee on your channel. Well, and now I'm sitting here in your car. We've finally done it. Yeah. The rain's tried to stop me, but the people who are watching this will know that the weather doesn't stop creativity.
No, future, they only exist in your mind. Yeah, so that's what it was all about. It was all about like where I am now. I was at a big changing point in my life. I was going through a major point of depression. I met a person while I was painting that completely changed, you know, like one of them little street conversations that just completely changed my mind about who I was, where I was in life. And ever since, I went out my way to better myself, found Buddhism and all kinds of stuff and that, you know, which again then taught me, you know, a decent way to think rather than the Western way that they program you of how they expect you to think. It made me realise that the systems that we're given by our fathers and mothers shouldn't be the ones that we should be continuing. We should be getting rid of, again, back to that anarchist sort of socialist idea that what we have shouldn't be. We should have better. We deserve better as a species. You know, whether it's the freedom to do your art on a wall, to make music, to make videos, to entertain people and bring education to the world or whatever. Whatever your thing is, it shouldn't be put down by capitalism and the sheer greed of a select few, you know. And I think that's what's I've loved about the graffiti scene is we've always said, fuck you to them kind of people, and we've always done it ourselves. We've run everything ourselves. We've got the permission ourselves. We made the paint ourselves. Even your companies that make the paint today that most people buy wouldn't exist if they hadn't been writers first and had that necessity to provide the tools that we needed to do that passionate thing that we all love and wanted to do. So, and that's where we are now, you know, through all them people going to jail, you know, bombing the streets, putting up with all the rap of like, yeah, that's just vandalism and that, you know. And then now, street art, graffiti, hip-hop in general changed the world, changed how people dress, trainer culture, everything all comes from what we were doing back in the 70s and 80s, you know. So,
wow, man, it's deep, isn't it? I All We Need Is Music?
That was a good funky one, and also I'm glad you brought it up. It was the very last painting I ever did with my brother Toxin, because he killed himself not long after that.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So it was it was a good one. It was just for a music festival down at Bournemouth, I think it was. You know, the all weekenders. So they commissioned me and another local writer, Psycho. He also used to write Keza for to do a load of backdrops for the weekender, you know. So we did the All We Need Is Music, because, you know, it's all about the vibration, brother. And, you know, I'm very passionate about music. I think probably a lot of your viewers will be too, you know. It sings to your soul. We are all vibration at the end of the day. I can't remember who quoted it, but somebody said that we are literally just music solidified. Yeah.
I'll have to find out who said that. And then we've got Meet the Boys.
Meet the Boys, that's a funky one. Again, main tease, Mr Zee. A funky play on that whole hip-hop sort of vibe that was around back then, with the high-top fades and the B-boys, and just a very traditional kind of piece with some nice wild styles and that on them, you know. Just a funky fantasy one, like it was. We used to just pick themes and run with them back then, you know, and that was the fun of like the productions, you know. And we just loved it, you know.
Cool, mate. Mr Zee, have for anyone watching this, any kids watching this, or someone wanting to get into graph, or you know, want to pick up the pencil like they did at school, you want to pick up the pencil and you want to create, have you got any words of wisdom from your vast experience in doing pieces on walls? Have you got anything to say to the kids?
Soaring Dimensions on the Colour of My Soul. Everybody knows it as the Time Machine piece. Yeah, that's what it's more popularly known, but its full name is Soaring Dimensions on the Colour of My Soul. And it's all about like where we are as humans, like as a person, as an individual as well. About how we travel along this little timeline that we have, this little bit of, you know, of the infinite that we get to allow to be in this form, and what we do with that, you know, and how we never stay the same. You know, you never wake up the same person, and you never wake up in the same place in the universe. You know, so that's what it's all about, the Time Machine, about the here and present now, because it's all that matters. Little horror fantasy one, you know, it's funny.
Cool, man, cool. There's another one with a tiger, Brave one at Grimsby Art Festival.
Oh, right, yeah. An interesting piece. Brave is really heavily influenced by a lot of old sci-fi artists, like what I like. In particular, when he sent me what he was planning on doing, it reminded me of Boris Vallejo's work. I don't know if you're familiar with Boris's work. Check it out, it's really good. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do my piece in that sort of style of like how Boris would paint like one of his mad alien tree kind of creature things in the background. So that's how that whole painting come together. It's actually a little tribute to Boris Vallejo in mine and Brave's sort of little interpretation of how he would do things and that, you know. So
wow, cool. We've also got Sourcing Dimensions on the Colours of My Soul.
Soaring Dimensions.
Oh, sorry. I'm just going to go through. Some of your work, which I've seen online that I've took a particular interest in. Which is the first one is Rainbow Warriors.
Oh, Rainbow Warriors, right? Yeah, that was in the park in the Ridges, Tonbridge Play site, and it was at a time where the whole area was really run down by this point, 1992. It was to be one of the very last paintings that we did. And we saw ourselves that in amongst all of that dilapidation and deprivation, to be colour warriors. We brought a bit of colour to all of that. What would you call it? Breakdown of the area, you know. Mm-hmm. So that was what the whole Rainbow Warriors sort of idea was. It was us on that little ego trip, thinking that, you know, we're brightening something up in the middle of all of that hurt, like nastiness and that, you know.
Yeah, of course, of course. Let the Blood Flow.
That one's just a funky, fun one that me and Main did. He wrote Mism on that particular painting. Mine said Z. It was 3D painted pieces with a little play that like Jason's touching me on the shoulder, sort of transferring his psycho power to me and that, as if we've taken people out and that. So it's called Let the Blood Flow, you know. Just never will do, brother, never has. Hi, thank you very much, and thanks to all the viewers for taking the time out of their lives to tune in. Yeah, appreciate it.